Thanks everybody for joining us today for our webinar, Metadata Platform Overview and Demo. My name is Colin White. I work in marketing with Metadata. And today I'm joined by Logan Neveau. He's the Director of Growth at Metadata. Thanks for joining today, Logan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Colin.
Great, and so just a few housekeeping items before we get the presentation going here. So we are recording today's presentation, and we will be sending a link to all of you who attend to the recording within about 24 hours or so after the recording is completed. Also, if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to enter them in the GoToWebinar question Q&A panel, and we'll be answering all the questions at the end. Just a quick note about the format today. So this is really designed to give you sort of a hands-on view of the Metadata platform. Much of this presentation is going to be a demo of the platform that Logan's going to give. But we're going to try to keep it to under 30 minutes or so, not including Q&A. So we'll hopefully get you out of here before the top of the hour. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it off here, Logan, if you want to just flip. So yeah, just a couple of slides here to start off before we really get into the meat of the presentation, which will be done by Logan. But you know, the reason why metadata exists is, as you all know, if you're on the line here, digital advertising is really a necessary part of the B2B marketing mix now. The problem is doing it well can be really difficult, right? So it requires constant optimization. B2B, you know, marketing teams generally don't have the resources that a B2C marketing team would have. And then just in general, figuring out what the ROI is, what the attribution is of digital ad channels is tough to do. And so there's this sort of lack of belief in the B2B marketing world that digital advertising can be a primary channel for B2B. But with account-based marketing, account-based advertising coming to the fore now, that's changing a little bit. B2B businesses know that you need to optimize your digital advertising channels as part of an overall ABM mix. And one of our mantras here at Metadata is A/B testing is dead. You may have seen that in some of our marketing materials. The reason for that is that B2B marketers in particular really need to be doing rapid experimentation and getting rapid results, right? There's no time. You don't necessarily have a huge audience to play with where, you know, 1%, 0.5% in lift on an advertisement is going to generate additional revenue with you. Usually working with smaller audiences. And so you don't have time to do simple A/B testing. We all do A/B testing, as you know, in email, for example, you know, A/B testing subject lines or header images and that kind of thing. But when we're dealing with these small B2B audiences, we just don't have the luxury of doing that in digital advertising world. So how do we expand that? How do we get into this rapid experimentation to get those rapid results? And some of the things that are working against us in the B2B world is, you know, we don't have necessarily a lot of resources, especially if you're a small B2B startup in the technology space. You know, you don't have a huge demand generation team. You don't have a lot of resources. It can be expensive to outsource digital advertising to an agency who may have those resources, but you may not have the financial means to do that. The other thing is that there's still very poor system integration between the different components of the marketing stack, right? We all have marketing automation, we have CRM, we have these, you know, dozens and dozens of other components that maybe are we want to hook into those core systems, but still we're still dealing with a lot of siloed data and fragmented results. It's hard to get a bigger picture, sort of a, you know, one dashboard view of what's going on, especially now that we're doing account-based marketing and account-based advertising. You know, the bidding process is still a mystery to a lot of B2B marketers. And just in general, it's just too slow, right? A/B testing in digital ads, when you need to get those rapid results, you can't afford to be waiting days or weeks to see which ad or which component of an ad is working for you the best. And so that's, you know, one of the reasons why the metadata platform was developed in the first place. So, you know, really the core message here we want to get across is, wouldn't it be nice if, you know, you as a B2B marketer had some sort of platform, and we're going to talk about how AI kind of enables that, artificial intelligence, that connects your entire marketing stack and operates, your entire digital advertising, your account-based advertising operation for you. And with that, we're going to move it over to some information about the metadata platform. And if you're here, you've heard about metadata, you've probably done some research and seen our collateral, or you've maybe sat in on a previous webinar. But really today, the point of today's presentation is to give you, sort of a first-hand view of the metadata platform and how it can work and operate your digital advertising, your account-based advertising for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Logan.
Thank you, Colin. So yeah, I mean, metadata is a pretty comprehensive solution. I mean, there's a lot of problems that Colin just talked about that metadata helps to solve in one platform. So, I mean, we have a predictive analytics feature set where we can help you understand who is your ideal customer profile and who should you be targeting. And then we can help you go out and find, net new lookalike accounts, or slice and dice your audience in a multitude of different ways, whether it's by, company firmographic information, specific contact demographic information, or even the tools that they're using in intent data signals. The other thing that we do and where we really focus is that actual campaign execution. So setting up a multitude of campaign variations that outscales, a manual effort or even A/B testing through maybe like an agency or another third-party tool. But then we use AI to optimize your budget across all of those different experiments. So not only are we going to help expedite, your setup and the creation, but also how do you, split your budget between Facebook and LinkedIn and display? What tactics are the most effective for you from a brand awareness perspective to get just, your branding and imaging in front of the right eyeballs, and from a demand gen perspective, where we're really focused on getting leads to convert and making sure that those leads are converting down funnel into MQLs and opportunities for the sales team to work. And of course, we're going to be doing retargeting since we're already handling all of that ads, but we can optimize, that retargeting and do some, some dynamic triggers there. And then, of course, because we can sit in between all of your different systems, we can automate the reporting. You have one place to come in and understand what's working and what's not across different channels, and understand how those leads progress down funnel into opportunities. And so you can have, one-to-one attribution, where for every dollar you put into metadata and digital advertising, how much pipeline are you generating versus how much pipeline are you influencing? So the direct and the indirect value of the ROI for you. So this right here is really our process, sort of start to finish. This will give you a really good high-level understanding, and then after this, we'll go ahead and jump into the platform so you can kind of see it in action. But as you can see here, it's a closed-loop system. Metadata learns from what we produce to get smarter over time, but we want to start over here with your tech stack. So specifically, we want to look into the CRM and understand, okay, what do your best customers look like today? And how do I go out and find lot more of those sorts of accounts and those sorts of contacts for you? So what we'll do is we'll reverse engineer from your opportunity data that ideal customer profile. And we only need a very little amount of information from your CRM to make this happen. So if, data quantity or maybe quality is a concern for you, with metadata, it shouldn't be. What we do is we only look at the account, the contact, how big the deal was, how long it took you to close, and what was the outcome, right? Did you win the deal or did you lose the deal? And with that, what we do is we actually will enrich it in our platform with a third-party aggregated data set that we have. So part of metadata includes our Elasticsearch instance of about a dozen different B2B data sources out there. So think, ZoomInfo and InsideView and Aberdeen and G2 and Bombora and LiveRamp and LeadSift, et cetera, where I can enrich all of that contact and account information, even though it may not be in your CRM. And that'll produce, a couple of different ideal customer profiles for you, not just one. I'll show you, if you're trying to go after larger deals in the future, this is the persona you really need to be targeting. If you're trying to just shorten your sales cycle, that's going to be a little bit of a different persona. And lastly, we show you what to avoid. So you see all three, subsets of your ICP. Once we have, the ICP finished, we go out and we'll find net new accounts that match that ICP specifically. So we'll go ahead and use those third-party data sources that we have to build custom audiences for you that are very, very specific, right? As a B2B marketer, there's only a certain number of accounts in the universe that can buy your product. And in each one of those accounts, there's only a few people that are on that buying committee. those are the only people we want to spend your ad dollars on. Anything outside that persona is really a waste of your marketing budget. And in today's competitive advertising world, you really can't afford to be doing that. So not only can we target by, that ICP, but we can also build, audiences from scratch to go after, some of those firmographic or demographic or technographic filters. We can pull in intent data signals to advertise to accounts who are, either in the early part of their research journey or even like late stage and in the buying process. As well as we can just take a list of named accounts that maybe you already have in your CRM or marketing automation, or maybe they're the web visitors coming, and we can go ahead and advertise to those as well. So if your sales team is going to do some outbound cold calling, we want to make sure that we provide them some marketing air cover. Or maybe you have a direct mailer campaign going out next quarter. We want to make sure that we have creatives and ads that match that exact same audience. So it's really an omni-channel approach for every single one of your marketing campaigns. Once we have those audiences created, what we do is we spin up, a multitude of different campaigns, and under each campaign, there's going to be several different experiments, anywhere from, dozens to thousands, depending on the budget and your size. But there's 6 major variables that we play around with and we test simultaneously. So it's that audience that we created or, imported into the platform. It's your images and your creative. It's that ad text and the messaging you want to associate with that ad. It's how you're capturing that lead, the lead gen or the landing page and that form. It's the content that you're offering in exchange for their information. And lastly, it's their channel. So in this example, with a very modest amount of inputs, 2 channels, 2 pieces of content, 2 offers, 4 text variants, 4 images, and 4 audiences, we can yield 512 experiments in total. So what may have taken you the time to set up 1 or 2 campaigns and experiments, you can now get literally 250x the output for your time and your effort. Now, the other challenge with usually running this sort of volume of experiments is how the heck do you optimize 500 campaigns when they're spread across multiple channels, right? Traditionally, it involves, exporting that data from all of the different channels, importing it into an Excel file, reformatting it using VLOOKUPs or pivot tables to understand the data, then going back to the channels to make your adjustments. With metadata, that all happens automatically with our AI. So we look at things like, hey, what's the objective of this campaign? If it's brand awareness, we know we need to optimize towards impressions, clicks, and website traffic. If it's demand gen, we know we need to optimize towards, leads, cost per leads, but then MQLs and the cost per MQL, and then finally pipeline and opportunities and closed won revenue. But whatever that KPI is that we're optimizing towards, we'll go ahead and move the budget to those winning experiments while decreasing the bids and the budgets on those experiments that aren't performing that well. So you may start with 512 experiments, but you'll probably end up with anywhere from 50 to 100 of these are going to be your solid top performers. And now 100% of your budgets are going to be behind those best performing campaigns. And you now understand, hey, what audience resonates with what content and creative? What messaging resonates on which specific channel? Those questions that we as marketers strive to understand are things that metadata and the data we provide will give you sort of a data-driven approach to understand, which can help you optimize your funnel, not just on digital advertising, but across everything. So if there's, a piece of content or messaging that's just not resonating across the board with any audience, with any amount of budget behind it, across any channel, you need to retire that messaging and maybe reiterate and come up with something new. So once that process gets started, the leads start to flow in from day one. And as soon as a new lead comes in, metadata automatically enriches it with that third-party data set. And then we also have a team of humans that are doing, manual enrichment as well. And once that lead's enriched, we push it right into your marketing automation. So whether it's HubSpot or Marketo or Pardot, whatever you're using, we'll go ahead and then ask that system, hey, what's the lead score for that lead that we just generated for you? Is it an MQL dependent on your triggers and your scoring mechanism? And does that eventually turn into an opportunity, or is it tied to an opportunity in the CRM? All of that is bundled together in sort of a lead quality feedback that we're feeding back into the model, into the AI. So we're understanding, hey, what's a good lead that progresses all the way down to revenue for you? And let me go get some more of those for you. So the longer metadata runs, the smarter we get. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the actual platform so you can kind of see it in action. Cool. So when you come in, you're going to see this dashboard right away. We want to show you exactly what's going on and kind of answer those most important questions of ROI so you know exactly what the funnel looks like. So you'll see things like, hey, how many active campaigns and experiments are running? How many have we already turned off and iterated through? How much have you spent trying to generate leads? What's your cost per opportunity and your cost per MQL through digital advertising? You know, what does your entire funnel look like from impressions all the way down to pipeline? And show me that pipeline split out between what's influenced and what's triggered. So for metadata, in order for us to consider anything influenced, we have to have a lead convert. But for something to be, you know, a triggered opportunity, that lead has to convert. They have to fill out that form prior to an opportunity being opened. And once that opportunity is open, we want to make sure that that same lead is the primary contact on that opportunity. So you know, hey, it was this exact decision maker that we got to that started the sales cycle. So you have a very clear understanding of what's the direct, you know, sort of generated ROI versus what's indirect and, you know, maybe part of your other ABM strategy or other channels that are generating pipeline and opportunity for you. And then, of course, what's working, right? What are your top 5 experiments for generating leads? And what are your top 5 experiments for generating brand awareness? So you understand, you know, what are your money makers? So once you kind of sign up with metadata and you get onboarded, we'll help you kind of connect all of these integrations for you. But all of these are OAuth connections. So as long as you have login credentials, we'll be able to connect directly. We're certified partners and have certified integrations with everything that you see here. We also have a Zapier app, which can integrate with any system that you may not see on the screen. So once we connect to the systems, we have that data set, so we can actually run that ideal customer profile. As you can see here, we can run multitude of ideal customer profiles. So maybe you want to look at this data split out by region. So show me what an ideal customer looks like in North America versus EMEA. Or maybe you have very different segmented business groups. So I want to see what my enterprise ideal customer looks like versus my SMB customer. Or maybe I have different products. Or maybe I just want to look at the last 12 months because we pivoted as a startup, you know, a year ago. Whatever it might be, you know, let's slice and dice that data and we can look at it separately in a way that makes sense for your business. But each one of them will yield those 3 profiles that I talked about earlier. So this first one being highest revenue, right? So all of these scores are going to be coefficients and values of what's going to bring you bigger deals in the future. So when you see an industry score for software at 80 and a business services score at 20, we know that software is 4 times as likely as business services to be a larger than average deal size moving forward. Same idea over here. This is kind of the perfect place to target because these are going to be larger than average deals, but are still going to close faster than average. So they're not going to be, you know, those whale accounts that you have to wait for 2 or 3 years for them to close. You'll still be able to see your revenue pretty quickly. And then lastly, this persona is the tire kickers of the world. You know, they look great because they're going to be MQLs, they're going to be open opportunities. The challenge with this is once they get into the sales funnel, your sales team isn't closing them. And what's worse is they are sticking around and they're chasing these people down longer than average. So it's a really huge drag on your growth when you can't spend the time on the accounts that matter. So it's a great way to kind of start a close loft analysis. You know, I know a lot of product teams or sales teams will start with this persona to try and understand, hey, do we need to change our pitch? Or are there different features that we need to build to capture more of this market? But as the marketing arm of the organization, we can spend our time focusing on these other 2 personas that are going to yield better results and faster ROI. So this is usually very interesting data, but it's also not actionable yet, which is why we kind of built the action in for you. So you can go ahead and create an audience from this ICP with 1 click. And you'll see it automatically takes you into our custom audiences tab here. It auto-populates all those top values, but it's not forcing your hand. That's to say you make some edits to this. So if the data tells you, hey, you know, Finland and Sweden are some of those countries you should focus on, but you just don't have a go-to-market strategy in EMEA yet, you can easily remove them and focus on maybe North America and the United Kingdom if you have, you know, a little bit of an earlier foothold there. We can also change, you know, some of the revenue bands. So maybe you're going up market and you only want to go after some larger accounts than where you've been in the past. You can make some of those a little adjustments before you actually create this audience. But once you're satisfied with exactly what this looks like, and these are the people you want to go after, and you hit create custom audience, on the back end, we're going out and we're pinging all of our different data sources to build you the largest audience possible. And a lot of magic happens behind the scenes when we do this. So we're looking for duplicates and we're deduping, that information. We're looking at each individual field and, the historic quality of that field value. So if we get conflicting information from two data sources, we know which data source to trust, or which one has been most recently updated, so that we can build you the most accurate audience possible. But we also gather multiple pieces of PII from each one of those data sources. So in building this list, I'm going to get their work email, I'm going to get their personal email, I'm going to get their IP address, their cookie, their mobile device ID, all things I can later use to target them more effectively on each individual channel. So the other way you can kind of build audiences is you can kind of come in here and build it from scratch. And as you can see, there's a lot of different ways we can build those audiences. So if you want to come in and build an audience that's maybe specific to one industry that you can then use an industry-specific case study to market to, that's an option with us. If you want to run campaigns that maybe are different for those very high-level C-level executives than the frontline managers, because they're going to have different pain points, that's also something we can do. And of course, we can segment this by regions, so either where the company's located or where that lead's located. If you want to bifurcate, your audiences and the content that they get by their geographic region and their language. We can also target by technology. So if there's, a competitor that you want to go ahead and market against and try and do a win-back campaign for, you can do it. If there's a technology that perhaps you partner with, or maybe you sit on top of or is required, or is just a high indicator of their likelihood to use your product or find success from your product, we can go ahead and target those specific users. And that includes front-end and back-end technologies. We also have the ability to go ahead and listen for intent topics through some of our data partnerships. So like Bombora, G2 Crowd, Mintigo, they're all some of our data partners that we, will incorporate their intent data for you. So that if there's an account out there that's starting to do research about a specific topic, or starting to look at, your G2 Crowd reviews, or maybe your competitors' G2 Crowd reviews, we can go ahead and target those specific accounts. And then within those accounts, we can identify, okay, who are those specific contacts that I need to reach? Of course, you can upload, a company list if you have the named account already created. If you have that, direct mailer sort of target account list, we can upload those things as well. Or if you have a contact list and you want to start advertising to your CRM or marketing automation database, we can do so as well. And in putting that audience through metadata, you do get that data enrichment, so it'll increase your reach for each one of these audiences. Now, once each one of these audiences are created, you can come in and you'll be able to see, okay, show me the companies that we've been able to find. How many contacts at each one of those companies can we reach? And what's my match rate on each individual channel that we're advertising to? And when did we create this audience? So not only do you have really great granular visibility on where your audience lives now, but you can also click in and QA this audience a little bit. We'll show you exactly, hey, these are the titles and these are the accounts that are included in this audience that are about to see your ads. So we know a lot of our marketers will share this with their sales team and make sure that they have buy-in. Like, hey, if I get you this as an inbound lead, would you want to reach out to it? Is this someone you want to talk to? If the answer is no, then let's go ahead and tweak the audience before you start spending money on it. If the answer is yes, then that's great. Let's move forward and go ahead and start launching campaigns to these folks. You'll notice you don't see any PII here, right? So there's no first name, last name, email, phone numbers, etc. That keeps us GDPR compliant. So we're not going to reveal that information until the lead opts in and converts. Once they do, again, I'll send you all that data, but this is usually enough for you to understand, is this the right audience that I want to go after, yes or no? And as you can see here, there's a lot of different audiences, right? We want you to play around with it. We never limit, the number of contacts, number of accounts, number of audiences, number of campaigns or tactics that you can play. In order to really see value in the experimentation and the campaigns piece, it requires testing a lot of different variables to find that, absolute number one top performer. So let's dive into one of these sample campaigns so you can see how easy it is to set up all of these different experiments. So here's one that I set up this morning that you'll see has 112 experiments already ready to go. So you come in here and all you have to do is select the specific audiences that you want to be included in this campaign. Then you can come in here and you can set up the specific ad that you want, these audiences to see. We can do images, we can do videos, we can do carousels, You can preview what this looks like on, a mobile feed versus a desktop or an instant article. All the different call to actions that are available on the channel will be available here, and it'll update, the preview in real time. And Metadata also has an image library where you can upload all of your creative content once without having to then upload it again on another channel and another channel and another channel. It's one place where you can kind of reuse it over and over again. Once you have that ad set up, maybe we want to, quickly spin up a variant. So instead of having to build it out from scratch just to change one little thing, we can duplicate it very quickly, and you'll see it'll bring up a copy. So maybe we want to understand, hey, I wonder if, this piece of creative, it performs better, all other things being equal. So instead of this being, image A, text A, this would now be image B, text A. We'd go ahead and hit save, and we'd have a variant ready to go. The other cool thing about this is because we're going through the API for LinkedIn and Facebook, all of these campaigns, all of these ads, all of this data will live in your account there as well. But you can see just by adding that one more piece of creative, we went from 112 experiments to now 126. The last step that we have to do is how are we going to capture this lead? And we have two primary options. So we can either do a lead gen form on the social channels, in which case we just have to understand, hey, what pieces of information do you want to ask for? And where do we want to send this lead after they convert? Or we need to do a lead gen form, landing page form, where I need the URL for your landing page and the thank you page, and we'll automatically map to the fields on that form. Once you set up one lead gen campaign or one lead landing page form, we'll be able to reuse it, so you don't have to keep setting it up every single time. And same idea with LinkedIn, right? Very, very simple, very, very easy. So you can see right here on this right that we know, hey, we're about to launch 126 experiments on Facebook and 20 on LinkedIn. And how did we get there? Well, we have 7 audiences times 2 offer times 9 ads. The limiting factor for most of our customers on how many experiments they can run is usually the budget. So each experiment needs a minimum budget. We usually recommend at least $25 a day, but that can balloon pretty quickly. So luckily, Metadata has the ability to cap your budget spend on a campaign by campaign basis. So you can tell us, hey, don't spend more than $2,000, starting from today through the end of July. Metadata will take that budget, then we'll go ahead and spread it across the experiments and channels equally, and then we'll optimize it between those experiments, across the different channels automatically to understand, what's performing best without exceeding your limit and while pacing correctly. That's all done, by the AI. If you want to micromanage your own campaigns, you want to be your own ad ops, you want to have a little bit more granular control, you can enable that, and you can kind of turn off the AI settings where then you can be your own ad ops just in an easier to use format and platform. And lastly, we have some minor settings that you can set up for each campaign. So we can route these leads once they convert to very specific static lists in HubSpot. We can go ahead and do tags. So if you want to track and report your budget, maybe by region or product line or by tactic, you can add custom tags. We also do dynamic UTM parameters so that we can automatically track and attribute all of these leads coming in automatically. Once you're at this point, your job is pretty much done. Hit launch campaign, put your feet up, and let the leads come in. And at that point, all 146 of these experiments will go live on your Facebook and your LinkedIn account, and you'll start seeing those campaigns perform. Now, one of my favorite parts of our platform is this experiments tab right here, where you can come in and you can see the granular level of performance across everything. You can filter this by the specific campaign that you've launched, or by that tag that you set up, or what's running, what's paused, what had an error, what's done running. You can filter it by channel, by the offer type, and what the objective of that campaign was, and of course the date range as well. But then you can come in here and you can sort by any of these metrics. So if you're trying to understand, hey, which experiment has given me the most amount of leads, you can sort by that leads column. You can come over and you can click in and you can see that ad. So we know that this was the top performer. It was a Facebook ad. It used the lead gen form. It was with our target industries audience. And this is the exact image creative call to action and button that got that lead to convert at a very, very high ratio. So those sorts of questions that, usually took a lot of time digging and, doing math can be solved with just a couple clicks here. Now, once all of those leads start to flow in, we're going to track them in kind of chronological order in this converted leads tab. So you'll notice a lot of the times you'll get personal email addresses when you do lead gen on social, right? Like LinkedIn and Facebook, they don't have ways to block or verify that it's not a Gmail that's being submitted, that it's actually a valid work email address, which has traditionally steered a lot of marketers away from lead gen forms or from, Facebook or LinkedIn. With metadata, it's not a challenge because we're doing that enrichment. So maybe we only asked for this lead's first name, last name, and email address. Well, we can still tell you, hey, here's their company. Here's their direct dial phone number. The UTM parameters that were filled out for that lead. Where are they located? Country, city, state. What's their job title, seniority, department, industry. What's the URL for that exact company? And here's their business email address. We can usually match this, between 60 and 80% of the time for our customers, depending on your target audience. We'll also show you, hey, what's the company phone if you can't get to them directly through that direct dial. We'll show you what audience they came from, what experiment and ad actually got them to convert, what the revenue count was, the employee count, and that zip code. So all of this information will automatically get pushed into the marketing automation system, and we'll record what date did it get put into the marketing automation. Was there a delay from the conversion to the marketing automation if you're pushing things manually? Once it gets pushed, we'll go ahead and ask your system, what was the score for that lead, right? So you can see, is it a good lead or is it a bad lead based on the scoring that you have set up in that platform? And did it achieve an MQL? And what is that date that the MQL was achieved? So you can track some of that performance. Then we go a little step deeper and we can show you, hey, show me those opportunities that we're generating from these leads, and how big is each one of those opportunities? What is the status of them? When was it created? And who are those leads that we got to convert that influenced this opportunity? Versus maybe, hey, which of these leads are the primary contact on each one of these deals? So you have really granular, information into the pipeline without having to go and dig into Salesforce and create a report. It's just here for you kind of automatically. Some of the other reports that we have are going to be, channel by channel breakdowns, as well as, website visitors and an account-based report, an account penetration report. Everything you see on this reports tab is, filterable with Boolean logic by date range, is exportable. So if you want to, funnel this data into another marketing attribution platform that you're using, that's totally possible as well. But right here, you can see very high snapshots of show me that funnel channel by channel and breakdown all the way down to form completion rate. Where are most of your leads coming from by channel, and what are those trends in leads, spend, CPMs, and CPLs? Each one of these channels will break down, obviously, what it's performing well on this channel and what's not. So are we trending in the right direction? Well, are automatically doing that calculation of, this is our performance versus month to date last month. So in this case, hey, we can see our impressions have dipped a little bit, about 15%, but our spend has, dropped by a third. So we're still getting a lot more bang for our buck here. And, oh, by the way, it looks like we're still getting more leads. We're still dropping the CPL and we're still getting better engagement. So that's actually a great story. That's something that we kind of want to see. Then, of course, what are the breakdown for each individual experiments on these channels? The Site Insights tab is going to show you, hey, who's been coming to our website? What's that engagement with our web properties on an account basis? And you'll be able to, click in and see, okay, what account has visited each subdomain? Are there traffic trends that increased or decreased based on maybe some other marketing collaterals or content that you're doing? Do you see a major uptick in number of clicks and page views and sessions when you launch a new advertising campaign? What's that impact look like, really? Who's coming to your website from an industry breakdown, what the browsers are so you can optimize, your website and your web properties, where that web traffic's coming from, and what are the most popular subdomains on your website. And of course, where a little heat map breakdown of those folks. And then lastly, we have this account penetration report, which a lot of our ABM marketers absolutely love. So it shows a breakdown and an engagement on each individual account from an impressions and click, a lead, and are they part of a named account list? And if so, what tier are they on there? Obviously, we can be a little hamstrung by the data sources and depending on where these companies are. So like GDPR kind of prohibits us from sharing some of those clicks and impression data. But if we have it, if we can legally share it with you, you'll see it here. So you can really get a good understanding of which accounts are hot, which ones should you be engaging with from the sales side of the house, and what's that account-based sort of lift in engagement, before your advertising campaign and after your advertising campaign. And that's kind of the platform, sort of start to finish, where you're going to be able to understand the ROI. You can do that targeting, run your ICPs, build your audiences, set up those campaigns, and measure those results and attributions, kind of one place to do it very quickly and seamlessly. So with that, I believe we're going to go ahead and open the floor to any questions that we might have.
Great, thanks, Logan. So yes, just as a reminder, if you have any questions, enter them into the GoToWebinar Q&A box, which should be on your screen there. We have a few questions that have started to come in over the course of the presentation. So first of all, Logan, is a question about integration with CRM and marketing automation. Do you need to integrate with both CRM and marketing automation, or can you just do marketing automation? And how does that impact the effectiveness of how the AI operates?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the CRM integration is optional. We have a lot of customers who will start without it while they work through security and, getting that integration done. It limits our ability to look at the pipeline attribution and the ROI all the way down to that level. So we can still optimize towards, MQLs and, leads that are high quality leads. We just stop one level short at really that pipeline optimization because we don't have that feedback data to optimize towards, but it's 100% something that we can do. The marketing automation system is a little trickier. We definitely want to have that so we can push your leads in a seamless way so that you guys can follow up with them quickly. I think all marketers know that there's a really big drop off with your response time for leads. You really want to get those in front of the SDRs and the sales team as quickly as possible. And when there's not that direct marketing automation link, usually there's a manual step required somewhere in that process, which makes the leads usually a little colder before it gets to the sales team. So we highly, highly recommend the marketing automation. CRM is a little more optional.
Right. Question here about the AI and how long it takes the AI to learn which ads or which ad components are performing the best.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's one we get a lot. So with AI, it's a little tricky because it's not time-based. It's more volume-based, right? It's all about how many at-bats the AI can get to learn and understand and seeing that data in the result. The other thing that makes it a little tricky to nail down a time frame is we're trying to also respect your sales cycle and understand, hey, what works and what doesn't. So we have to also kind of give time for the sales team to engage and open opportunities and close opportunities before we really truly understand the value for those leads. So there's ways to accelerate that learning, right? We can run fewer experiments with higher budgets, and usually we can get more volume of data faster so it can learn faster. Typically, we can start to see improvement in like the first 2 or 3 months. For some of our customers, it's taken a little bit longer, but usually you can see full ROI and positive ROI in sort of 6 months, right? Like 6 months is the average time it takes to completely optimize your funnels and reach that predictability standpoint where you can say, hey, if I put in $10,000 in ad spend this month, I know exactly how much pipeline that's going to yield or exactly what my cost per lead is going to be and how many leads to expect from it.
Awesome. And so the next question is about the ideal customer profile. I know you touched on this in the demo a little bit, but I think the question is how does Metadata, does the platform help the customer define their ICP, or do they just have to input it into the system?
Yeah, so I mean, an ideal customer profile can be very data-driven, but data-driven is, I think, two-dimensional. So I think that there's also a little bit of tribal knowledge that comes from, the sales team and the marketing team and what they know works and what they know doesn't work. So as part of, our engagement, we have everything from kind of like a self-serve platform to a fully managed service offering. So when you're on that self-serve tier, definitely, we can help you with the data-driven approach. But it's a little bit more of just that data. When we're on that fully managed service, we really want to understand and sit down with you and try and improve that ideal customer profile. So it's a lot more like having an agency or a consultant in that model. In that regard, you'll get a lot more help and a little bit more analysis on that ideal customer profile too.
Okay. Question here about opportunity. So does the opportunity metrics take into account multiple leads on each opportunity and distribute the value, or does it double count the full opportunity value? I guess that's more from the dashboard perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there is multiple leads tied to an opportunity, when we're looking at the ROI on the dashboard, we don't double dip and we don't count, one opportunity as two if we have two leads tied to it. When it gets to the optimization of the experiments, we want to make sure that each one of those leads gets some sort of value associated with it. So we definitely split the value of the opportunity based on, the number of leads that are converted and attached to the opportunity, but we give more weight and we treat the primary contact on that opportunity as a little bit more important. So it's about like a 60-40 split if there's two contacts on there, where 60% of that opportunity value will be based on the primary and about 40% is on the secondary.
Right. Okay, question here about does the platform also create email workflows or integrate with MailChimp?
Yeah, so we don't do email right now. It's only display advertising. We can, obviously, once those leads convert, they're opt-in leads. So you're legally allowed to email them. We can definitely push those converted leads into MailChimp for you to follow up with, but we're also not reselling the data and the audiences that we created. So the audiences that you kind of build within metadata are solely for that advertising purposes.
Right. Another question, is it possible to use the platform to advertise on Instagram as well?
Yes, so everywhere you saw Facebook, Instagram folds right underneath that. So 100% native.
All right, great. Just a reminder, if you have any further questions here, enter them in the Q&A panel. I think the last one we've got here so far is in terms of the team or resources required to run the platform. What's the sort of typical size team needed to run the metadata platform at a customer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, we service customers who are, in their seed stage and have like 15 employees in-house, all the way up to some of the giants like Hitachi and SAP and Nutanix, who have tens of thousands of employees globally. Traditionally, it really only takes one or two points of contact at each company for metadata to work. If you're going to be doing it in a self-serve manner, you want to have someone who can kind of build creative and content and someone who can set up the campaigns. And, sometimes that can be the same person. At larger organizations, or if you want that managed service, you really just need one person to kind of give us direction and to share those contents and those assets that you're creating in-house. But there's usually not a huge team that's required, internally to make metadata run effectively.
Okay, great. So I think that is all the questions we have for today. And I think with that, we're going to end the presentation. Logan, thanks for joining us and giving that demonstration of the metadata platform. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
If you have any questions for Logan, his email address is on the slide that you see on the screen now. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be sending you a link to the presentation recording within about 24 hours or so. So you'll get that shortly. So with that, we're going to end the presentation. Thanks very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you at a future metadata webinar.